Okay, the progress we made beforehand on this model, we can now pretty much go over here. We can pretty much scratch if you're lucky enough to have. I think my control button was knocked over there. There we go. If you're lucky enough to have fumefx. Now, what I'm going to be doing is creating a fumefx simulation. Now, you may see I've been running some tests before, so I'm just going to delete all the junk I've got lying around from this except for my camera. And I'm going to go into camera 2 just to show you what we're going to be using. Okay, now at the moment, as you can see, it strides forwards. Okay. Now it's about to raise its multi-melter to get to frame 220 when it starts to fire. Now if we look, all I've done is I've taken away the event that the spawn made, okay, which was just a scaling event. I've also taken away the event for age test in here and the event age test inside the spawn scale test. They've both been deleted just to leave shoots invisible light. You don't know what I'm talking about? Go back and look at the original work we did in part 36, I think it was. Well, part B36, and that'll show you what we've been doing, okay? So there's no point getting all confused about it. Basically, we're just stripping this down though to melta and shoots invisible light and getting rid of the other bits and making sure the age test's gone at the same time. Then all we do is we change the shape from instanced to a vertex and display to just dots. That's all we need. And then when we come up to frame 20, bamity, 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 bam, as you can see. Okay? Really easy stuff. Okay, now what we're going to do is go to my top viewport and I'm going to hide some bits. So, hide everything. Pardon me. I'm going to unhide my right arm. And I'm going to create a fumefx cage just here. Give it a bit of height. And I'm going to rotate it. Turn off angle snap. And I want to rotate it basically to where the front of the gun is, which is about here, so that when it shoots, it's going to shoot inside here. And depending how far back we want to go is also dependent on, you know, how much of the cage we need, because we want the cage only really here to calculate what's going on inside of it, yeah? Basically, the bigger the cage is, the more calculating it will do. We're not messing around with smoke, so I don't need to have loads and loads of height or anything like that on it. Okay, and that gives us this shape here. Now, we need something to tell fumefx we're going to be using particles again. So, again, helpers, particle source, just drag it out over here. And let's give it the name in advance. So, we go over here. This is ffx particle source 1, particle source. Because we've got a lot of stuff going on in our scene now, okay? And over here, let's give this a name as well. fumefx cage. Okay, this way we know exactly what it is we're working with. Next, over here I'm going to pick our particles. I'm not going to bother picking any light at the minute or anything like that. Now, going to my cage, I'm going to flick our little light switch here for the output window and flick this. Now, you'll notice that you can resize this window, which is useful. And if I go to my objects and sources over here, I can add in my daemon. There it is. Now if I go to general, set our start frame to 220, ending at 300, that means it'll only calculate 80 frames, which is brilliant. We don't want to calculate in 300 frames. We don't need to render the 300 frames, especially if we're going to composite it in something like After Effects or something like that. Okay, next. Well, let's just press play and see what happens first. Okay, I know what happens, but let's press play anyway. Oh yeah, and before we do, make sure your output path is set somewhere. Here we go. Wow, that's a big meatball. Okay, so what we've created there basically is a wall of fire. And we don't really want wall of fire when it comes down to it. So we're going to do some changing of this. Because don't get me wrong, it's pretty, but it's just a bloody wall of fire. You may as well make a flamethrower with that. Okay, so first of all, spacing. I'm going to drop spacing down to 5. That way, you know, it'll calculate the spacing between these a lot more. Next, simulation. Quality, going to keep the same. Iteration's going to keep the same. Gravity, going to change that. That way we get no drip. I'm going to change buoyancy. That way it doesn't rise up. Vorticity, I'm going to change to about 0.25 with the velocity damping on 0.1. Okay, now let's see what that does. There we go. That's better. That's the bottom melter. And we should have the top melter thundering through any second. Okay, not bad. Quite a bit of expansion going on there. But it'll do for a start off. As you can see, it's going to take a little while to calculate as well. So let's click stop. Okay, what else can we do to make this a bit funky? Well, let's look at the amount of particles we've got coming out of here. If I just hit 6. And look at our birth. We've got 50 particles. Spawn by travel, we've got a step size of 10. So we can change this to perhaps 8. Or to 20. Let's say 20. That'll give us less particles. Okay, now let's open up the thing and re-render it. There, that's slightly more of a gap between them. Still looking nice and hot as well. Remember, we're trying to avoid smoke, and smoke's going to start appearing any second. We're only a couple of frames in. We do want a bit of smoke, but we don't want tons of it. Yeah? So let's stop the smoke working quite so well. We'll change the fire color a little bit. We can darken it down, or we can lighten it up. That depends what you want. I'm going to darken mine down a tiny bit. Next, for the smoke, I'm going to right click it, make it keyless mode. Just drag it up a little bit. That'll give us that nice grey tinge around the edges. Okay, second, I'm going to go to my object source. Now, at the minute we've got a radius of 10. That's kind of too much. Let's drop it to a radius of 3. And fuel, fire, temperature. Here we are, temperature. Now, as you can see, I've been messing around in the past with this. The temperature defaults to 100. In our simulation, ignition temperature is 100. So if you look at that, that's what it looks like. See this little kind of piddly, kind of flamey thing going on here. Yeah? Now, yeah, that's nice and all, but like I say, change the radius. Maybe 5.5. See how cohesive they look. That's better because they're going to get thicker as they go along because of the way our particle system's set up. That's not bad. Next, let's look at the temperature. Let me see. So again, I'm going to change this to 1250. Or 1000 is it? Is that the maximum it'll give us? Oh, that's fuel. 1250. There we go. Variation of 10. It's not that down to about 7.5%. Okay, next in simulation, ignition temperature of this stuff is going to be about 800 degrees, and we can mess with the burn rate a bit. Maybe make it 10. Okay, let's see what happens there. Ah, that's better. Now you notice we're getting these pure burning, oxidizing kind of nasty heat ray coming out of this thing, and it's not a clean heat ray either. I mean, I was thinking of doing this with volumetric light, and you can do it with volumetric light and you get a kind of laser beam, but I thought, well, that's not going to look dirty enough. I want this to look rank, you know, really dark, dank flame, and that's exactly what this looks like. So that's quite content. Just let it finish its little simulation, and then I can do some final tweaking on it just for the light on it as much as anything. And then we'll go and quickly set up our flamethrower, as I mentioned earlier when I did a kind of separate flamethrower example just to show you. And we can also tie the fumefx into the engine system that we've got on the back of our dreadnought and make smoke and all sorts of fun things come out of that too. There, that's nice. Just ridiculously hot, and it looks like it probably, you know, cause quite a lot of damage. So at frame 200, and well, here we are, 220, and watch how it progresses. I mean, you've got to remember this is 2.5 seconds, and you've basically got this wall of fire. There we go. I mean, that's certainly not real time either. That's amazingly hot looking. That's a good start. Okay, so while we're still here, and obviously enjoying ourselves, another thing we need to do, actually I'll turn on the preview window, another thing we need to do is calculate this, okay, because it's coming out of this. So I'm going to attach this to our object sources and space warps, and arm join is a solid object, and now it can calculate our fire based on this. So we're again going to re-render. Open our general parameters. Here we go. And again, I'm just going to click Start Simulation and pause. Okay, as you see, it's redone the calculation now. And there is our heat melter. Now it's got a few tail ends going off here. The calculation's not quite right. But we can increase the quality, and it would, of course, improve that over time. We're not going to do that now, because we just don't have the damned time. Okay, let's drop into perspective and zoom out. And next, I'm going to manage layers, and I'm going to unhide my power fist arm, which is just down here. Okay, now the power fist arm, again we're going to set up a particle system, but it just has to be retardedly simple for this one. Like really, really simple. I'm just going to move this over to here, because it needs to be a bit closer anyway. There we go. Now, I'll just set up my particle flow quickly inside here. Just stick auto grid on. And I'll just use my local. There we go, just move that to there. Just a quick and dirty way of doing it. You can assign it to objects or do whatever the hell you want. But I'm just being lazy. Oops. Let's move it 90 degrees. Sorry, 180 degrees. And that way particles will come out of it. And then press 6, and we have two particle systems, one next to the other. So rename this one burna, and rename it Dead Bernie, which is exactly what it is. Now, drop into camera position 1, and we can find the point where it's actually emitting. Hang on a second. Before I do, let's reset up this one again. Okay, quickly just drop the PF source in here. Just want to get this in the right position for the emitter, and it's just as easy using this as it is creating a piece of geometry to do it for me. Okay. Bring it to about here. So it's just coming out the nozzle. And then flip it just 180 degrees. And then bond it. Just here. Okay. Next, again, 6. Delete the dead event. Move this event. And rename it again. There. Give it an orc name for a change. Okay, now it's birth. Again, like I said, we need to link this. I was just about to link it and forgot. Oh no, I've already linked it, haven't I? That's alright. Right, so drop into camera. It's camera 2. Go to camera 1. There we are. Just find the right point that I need to start this from. There, 160 I think. So 160 to 220. And that's then when this one kicks off, so that's pretty cool. So 160 to 220. Let's go over here then. And the amount will tailor in a few moments. Now, one of the other things I need to do then, go to my top viewport, and when this starts shooting its particles out, which is what it's done there as you look, I need to make something for it to collide with. So I'm going to make a box. I'm just going to drag that out like so, and bring it down. And I'm going to rename it non-renderable box for particle collision. That way I know exactly what it is. Seems long-winded. It is long-winded, but there you go. Let's just unhide the floor for a moment, which is probably in something like tools or something. No, not tools. Where the heck is it then? I'll find it. There it is. There's the floor. Right. It was under banner. Of course it was. We need to make a floor group. Okay, put that there, and then I'll hide the other junk again. So we're just working in the right arm area. Just make sure that all the particles are going to land on this. Okay, let's just rotate this round a little bit. There we go. That way at least it's facing more or less the right direction. And off the top of this I can then build my grid for fumefx. There we go. Another fumefx grid, goodness me. Okay, I'll pop that there. So if this one is called fumefx cage, this one will be called burna fumefx cage. Okay. Now I think we might have some stuff left over from the previous what do you call it, particle system. So let's have a look. Select that and delete it, and then we can get rid of this particle flow group. There we go. Right, next I'm going to apply some gravity. There we go. And they'll probably do it for that one. Next I'm going to apply particle source. Here we are. Okay, and I've got more or less everything I need now to start building my particles. So, go into here, just press 6. Here's my particle system. I'll just keep it visible over here as well so I know what I'm doing. Bert's fine, position, pivot. That way it's just coming out in one area. Speed's fine, but I'm going to add divergence to it. Not particularly fast enough, so maybe I'll change the speed to about, I don't know, 500 or so. And the amount, let's keep it low for the moment. I can always increase it soon. Next, I need to put a collision thing in, so I'm going to go to my deflectors, Put a U deflector in, and I'm going to apply this non-renderable box as my U deflector. I'm also going to go into my properties for this box and make sure that it's non-renderable. Okay. Now, if I keep a force in here, I can apply my gravity, which should make my particles thud to the ground. And there they go, all thudding away. Straight through the ground. Let's delay the influence on them a little bit. There we go. And when they collide, so let me see. When they collide, I'll just make them, I don't know, not do anything yet. But if I go over here, I'll change my bounce to 0.01, so there's a minimal bounce. Variation 1%. Chaos, the friction, I'll ramp up a bit to about 90%. So now as you see, they kind of gather on there. Okay, that's fine. Don't want to delete them yet. Maybe delete them, I don't know. I don't think I want to delete them actually. I'll just leave them the way they are. Okay, shape's not going to be tetra. It's going to be avert. Display's just ticks. That's all I need. Okay, and that should be just about everything I need just to get started on my burner. So, next, if I go over here, and I need to make a new workbench, which I'm going to call workbench 2. Inside workbench 2, I'm going to call this my burner. Okay, let's make things a bit easier. Next, I need to build a fumefx particle source just to lock my particles into. Oh no, I already did. Hang on. I'm being a silly man. There it is there. Now this one's named particle source, so this one will be burner particle source. Like so. And just go down here. Just click the particles coming out of it. It'll pick up our burner. Drop back into camera 1 for the moment. And I'm going to pull back a little bit. That's better. Okay. There's frame 160, which is where we start. So, I'm going to open up our fumefx panel, increase the size of my window, and under objects and sources I'm going to add this. Now you'll see it's pretty much inherited the same details as we had on the previous one. Gravity though is reset to what it should be. It's defaulted. Everything else looks pretty standard. Okay, let's do a quick run through of this. Start simulation. Stop. Because we don't need to do all of it. So start frame is going to be 160. End frame is still going to be 300 though. Right, so there we go. You can see it's kind of throwing those out and throwing out a bit of smoke. Woo, that's awesome. Okay, so the world's most unawesome flamethrower just basically spat some crap onto the floor. So let's change the settings a little bit. First of all, let's change the radius to 15 and see how that helps. Yeah, that's better. Quite a lot of smoke on there. So let's change the burn rate on it. Let me see, the burn rate at the minute's 30. Let's drop that down to 15. Slightly better. Let's change the smoke on this. Again, make it keyless. and I'm just going to make it fairly dark grey like so. Next our fire, let's just drop the colour a bit, make it nice and dark, not too dark though. Possibly, I don't know, crank up the value on the red a bit. No, that's too dark. There we go. Keep it where it was. Okay, I'm not going to change around with the volume shading. Object and source then, let's have a look. The temperature at the minute is 1250. Let's try it on 500. Slight improvement. I don't think we really have enough particles is part of the problem. So, let's go back to where our particles are and open them up. Now at the moment, I can get rid of this material static as well actually. There we go. At the moment, we have 100 particles, and this one has 50 particles. That one can get away with 50, but this one can't really. So let's try raising it to 250. And we'll see how that goes. That's much better. That's more like a full spread of fire going on. Clouds are quite dark, not especially dark, but quite dark. You can see they're walling out here though at the edge of our simulation and at the top of our simulation. So we're going to have to increase the size of our boundary on this. Let's increase the height and the width. Okay, turn this back on again and now recalculate it. And you should see quite a difference. What we need to do really is change the opacity of that smoke quite a bit though, because we're going to lose quite a lot of detail. And it's still trimming it a little bit at this edge, so I probably want to increase the width again. I can also increase the spacing. At the moment in our simulation, let's have a look. Our spacing is 14.4, so if we bring that back up to 30 again, let's see how that looks. Losing quite a lot of detail there, and it's just flickering a bit. Drop that down to 10 instead. Should give us much more of a pure kind of flow of fire. Yeah, that's fine. I don't need to actually mess around with the using this as a kind of object to deflect our particles either, which is good, because obviously I've positioned the nozzle right outside the cone that it's coming out of. Let's just let it finish its simulation here. Obviously it's going to take a little bit more time because we've given it a lot more space to calculate in. Pretty though. Okay, as you can see, it's now finished its simulation. We can still make changes to this as well, which is helpful, just in the rendering dialog. So for example, we can mess around with the visual fall off, or there we go, which obviously makes our clouds darker. We can change our shadow fall off. We can apply a mental ray final gather multiplier, and of course cast and receive shadows. or change the opacity to make it slightly more see-through. If I make it see-through like this, you see, we're just getting kind of dirty black, kind of tarry, filthy smoke, which is nice. And of course we can change our thresholds. Let's see. Lower threshold will probably have the most effect. As you can see, which kind of limits our smoke a lot more. I'm not going to mess around with the threshold though, because I like it. Okay, let's look at the fire. We can change its opacity to make it really, really, really bright fire if we want. And its colour. As you see, we can bring it right down as well to make it a very tarry flame. It's nice that you can see these effects in real time as well. There you go. See, that's quite a nice tarry effect. And we can brighten that up to make it really, really fiery. There we go. And of course we can key it over time if we prefer as well. Okay, haven't stuck a light in the scene yet. I'm going to keep everything pretty much the way it is. I'm quite content with that. So we have this one, and we should over here also have this one. As you can see. So the good thing is that with both these calculated, we can render them together and then comp it into our scene. And that is how you do a nice fast flamethrower and multi-melter just using fumefx.